Okay, good evening, guys. Thanks for being here. Good evening, good evening. We are looking at army lists, as always, on a Sunday night. So if that's something you're interested in, then please consider subscribing. Let me throw chat up on the screen correctly. Here we go. Alright, so we get 3 lists to look at tonight. They are submitted by community members. They are Foz, Steve T, and Oskan Remak. Oskan? I really don't know if I'm saying that correctly. But good evening, Daniel, Kevin, Robert. Thanks for being here. So, I mean, maybe we need to just start about saying, before we just dive straight into armies, what are people's opinions on squats, huh? That was announced this weekend. Mixed opinions, it seems like. The squats are really back. I never really played with squats before. I believe they were more of a rogue trader thing, and there was like one or two pages about squats in the Codex in 2nd edition. The Codex Imperial. I'm struggling to say that now. Codex Imperialis, I think it was called. Codex Imperialis, something like that. Yeah, this book. Don't know if any of you guys ever had this book. Very old book. I actually have a copy. It's just in the office at the moment where I play games on Monday night. But this book had like one page, maybe had like one data sheet for the squats. So, for me, I don't know. I mean, thoughts? People going to pick up squats? Good evening, Dirty Wizard. Good evening, Archon. Why were they needed when so other many things need attention, says Steve West. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why they're mixed opinion. If 9th edition had been in a great place right now, maybe people would have been loving the addition of squats. But with all the balance problems we got like 4 factions that are just running away with things. Adding more factions, I guess the problem will be probably is the people that are making squats aren't the people that are in design, in charge of the balance, you know? Robert says he's really excited for squats. He never got to play them back in 2nd edition. I actually don't even remember what the squats models looked like in 2nd edition. 2nd edition squats. I imagine there were metal models back then. Is this what they looked like? Oh my god, some of the old... Yeah, I don't even think I've ever seen these before. Oh, really? Space Dwarves. Were they actually called Space Dwarves at one point? £2.50? You are joking me. You got 6 models for £2.50? That's inflation for you, isn't it? Wow, look at the data sheets. This is more familiar with what we're used to, but we have initiative. Leadership 9 on a squat back in the day, I guess. Okay. They ain't afraid of anything, I guess, squats. So yeah, it seems like mixed opinions on squats. I'm probably not going to be picking them up, honestly. I'm sticking with Marines. But, I mean, this character looks kind of cool, I guess. I mean, is that a Power Fist that he's got? I guess, kind of. Yeah, it must be. So you must get some sort of... They must have a balance between ranged and shooting. Okay. I've got no interest in squats, says Daniel. I actually played the game when they existed before, taking the longest break ever. They should fix the current game. Arkin says he thinks that time will tell with the squats, but it's going to be fun. I love that GW can't even release codexes in a timely manner or balance what they have, and they want to add a whole new faction, says Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that's got people on the fence about them, Jesus. But yeah, okay. Squats are coming. It's not an April Fool's. They're going to be an entirely new faction. They're not even going to just be a kill team. They're just going to be their own thing. So keep an eye out for squats, I guess, basically later in the year. That's what it is. Another faction for us to learn how to beat, I guess. We can do a video on how to beat squats when they come out. I'm sure we can look into that. It does look cool. Even though it's just one model, says Kevin. Yeah, I mean, I guess time will tell how big a range they get and stuff like that. So, alright, let's dive into the first list for today. And today's first list is submitted by Foz. I should probably say that next week's lists are Josh Curtis, Slim Hogan, and Brian Lemas. So if you guys were wanting a list review, it is up next week. I know that Slim messaged me before the stream, I think, asking if he was up this week, and it is next week for you, Slim. So sorry I didn't get back to you quicker. I wasn't in front of my computer, so I don't have the data or who was up. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So let's get into the first list, and it is submitted by Foz. I think I already got it open here. Yeah, cool. If you have any questions, just fire them to the chat. We always try and take questions from the chat. I'm surprised no one has mentioned how yellow my screen is yet. Because I run this thing that yellowifies the screen, because, yeah, there's the white light that we know and love. I fucking hate white light like that, so I'm just going to put on my yellow glasses. Excuse me. Someone mentioned it, Kevin said the screen's way too yellow. Yeah, I like the yellow, dude. It's a thing that deepens the whiteness of the light. Near the later it gets in the evening, the more yellow it makes your screen, because it's blue light that keeps you awake at night, apparently, and white has a lot of blue in it, right? Okay, cool. Let's have a look at Foz. So please see my updated army list below. Still trying to build my army to be able to play my first game in 9th. And I saw that Foz was in the chat as well, so if you've got any questions or my feedback, please hit me up. The general plan is to push much into reserve as possible, or in the sky to avoid the opponent from engaging in turn 1 in some deployment games with Phobos. Use Lord of Deceit on the Phobos Librarian, 1 squad of Intercessors and Eliminators Strategic Reserve, on the Island-clad Eradicators and Landspeeders, and Death from Above on the Sangri Guard, Death Company Marines. Once everyone is on the board, use a Jump Pack Librarian to buff the Sangri Guard and Dreads, the Phobos Captain, and hit rerolls on the Phobos Librarian to protect Eliminators until key targets are knocked off. Aiming to use secondaries Death from Above, or Oath, Psychic Interrogation, or Veil, and a third based on the opponent's game plan. Alright, let's see what you've got. One thing that I just want to start off by saying is, like, strategic reserves are fine, and I mean, I play a lot of games and I usually put 1 or 2 squads of assault units into strategic reserves. It's usually like Terminators and Sangri Guard, or Terminators. I would say for me it's usually Terminators and Sangri Guard. Sometimes I put a Dread into strategic reserve, and most times I put a squad of assault intercessors and maybe a Landspeeder into strategic reserves, but the only reason to really focus on doing that is if you feel weak in the game. If you feel strong in the game, I feel like you don't need to put that much into strategic reserve. I mean, like, the Landspeeder and Assault Intercessors, for me, there's a distinct plan of putting them in strategic reserve, but, like, strategic reserves are... I mean, they're fine to have some, but, like, putting as much as possible into reserve, which typically means, like, half your army, or you're only allowed to put up to half, right? So 999 points. So, like, 1 point shy of 1,000, which is half. I don't like doing that unless there's, like, I wouldn't do that every game. I'd only do that if I felt like I can't deploy my units on the board because I'm too scared. Because you're paying a lot of CP. You're hindering your ability to react as well, because, like, when you react with strategic reserves, you always have an 8-inch charge, which isn't great. Whereas, like, if you can start them on the board and you can move from cover to cover, you can potentially get better charges, like if you're using Sangri Guard or something like that. I've had games where I've really had Sangri Guard start on the board and hang out and do nothing for a couple of turns. I actually want to pick, like, I want to see if I can quickly pull up, like, Games Workshop tournament maps. Yeah, this is the thing that they were speaking about, like, two map types, terrain setup 1, terrain setup 2, that they were playing in tournaments, and I think this is the map that goes along with it, right? So, like, this is your map in the tournaments that Games Workshop are running, and no, that one didn't have the graphic, unfortunately. Yeah, so this picture and this picture, right? And like, imagine the deployment zones. If you were at one end of this or the other end, or even on one side, these two pieces of terrain in the middle are really interesting, right? Because like, you're never going to be able to deploy into these two pieces in the middle. But if you can ever get like a jump unit into this piece in the middle, then you kind of have like the ability to just jump out and threaten. You could threaten here, you could threaten here, you could basically, if you had a jump unit deployed like this, you can threaten like anywhere on the board. So if we were deploying, let's say we were on this end to begin with, I would start a jump unit here, and in turn one I would advance them over and hide them in here. And if the enemy has no way to really counter that or shoot them from no indirect fire or something, that's like a much better position for like a Sangri Guard or a Vanguard Veteran squad to be in than to be in Strategic Reserve. Because in Strategic Reserve, you're always having to make that 8-inch charge, which we've just said is not reliable. If you have your Sangri Guard unit hidden in that building in the middle of the moment, and like, this is just one example map. Any map that has some sort of piece of terrain like when you're setting up your army, looking at the battlefield, and you go like, that piece of terrain, if I get my unit into that piece of terrain, like, I have a good coverage, I can go almost anywhere I want, I can threaten wherever I want. That's something that's really valuable. And sometimes, I mean, I've done this before, like, let's see, your list, does it include some Incursors? It does, right? It includes Infiltrators as well, so you've got something that can forward deploy. So the only thing that you might be worried about is, like, if I put my Sangri Guard in here, the enemy might be able to, like, have a unit come in and charge them. Well, what you can do is use one of your forward deployment units to essentially screen the Sangri Guard. You could be like, I don't care if my Incursors die. I mean, in most games your Incursor's going to die anyway, so I can sacrifice one squad of Incursors. They can be in front of the Sangri Guard, so there's no easy way for the enemy to charge into your Sangri Guard. And then you could just have your Sangri Guard chill out in there until an opponent moves sort of inside this area, and then you can just instantly charge them and kill them. So it's something to really consider before you just mindlessly slap everything into Strategic Reserve. You're probably better starting on the board if you can possibly do it, right? No problem, Dirty Wizard. Thanks for tuning in. Good evening, Kieran. How you doing? Don't know if we've met before, Kieran. Thanks for tuning into one of the live streams. Anyway, Captain Phobos Armor, Lord of Deceit, so we can redeploy 3 Phobos units, and he is the master crafted Instigator Bolt Rifle, and he's Hero of the Chapter. This captain is okay. I mean, he does a bit of damage with his Sniper Rifle, but he really doesn't do much damage with his Combat Knife, being no AP. I've used this captain before, and honestly, I don't like him that much. Just my opinion. I'd much rather like a combat character. I think that's much more beneficial to Blood Angels. Good evening, Benno. How you doing? Where most are going to sleep, I'm waking up. Well, welcome to the stream from the other side of the world if you're just waking up. Librarian, Veil of Time, Null Zone, Soul Warden, Psychic Fortress, Bolt Pistol, Chief Librarian, Jump Pack, Psychic Mastery, Armor Indomitus, and he is the Warlord. Interesting that you've gone so strong on the Librarian and the Jump Pack. I mean, I guess there's one way to do it, is give him Armor Indomitus. It's just, I always find that Librarian, at some point during the game, you just end up sacrificing him, right? To make sure you get Null Zone off on a key enemy target. And I don't think I like him running as a Warlord with Armor Indomitus. I guess with Soul Warden as well. Like, you've jacked up this Librarian, but at some point he's inevitably gonna need to sacrifice himself to make a Null Zone play. And you don't need a Null Zone in every battle, but my opinion of this Librarian is, like, he's not that survivable. He kind of hides, and then he comes out and he does a Null Zone play. And yeah, earlier in the game he can do some buffing, but I'm not a huge fan of making him my Warlord and putting Armor Indomitus on him and also Soul Warden, but I guess, I mean, the Soul Warden, Armor, and Dominus in of themselves are not bad picks. Just, I think that Librarian sometimes ends up needing to be sacrificed. Okay, then you have a second Librarian in Phobos Armor who has Shrouding and Soul Sight, and I do not ever run Librarian in Phobos Armor, so I need to quickly remember what Soul Sight does. But I mean, I feel like Shrouding is, you can make it that the enemy cannot target a unit unless they're closest eligible, and Soul Sight is each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, you can reroll the hits, and those are both only Phobos powers. Okay, so you've got two Phobos-y type buffing powers on this Librarian. And I guess he has Adamantium Mantle, giving him a 5-up shrug. I'm just not a huge fan of either of these picks, actually. I kind of feel like the Phobos Phobos troops aren't that strong in terms of combat. The strength the Phobos troops bring to your army is the mobility. So I get Lord of Deceit is good, and Guerrilla Tactics is really good for scoring points, but I guess it depends on how many eliminators you've got. Alright, troop-wise, we get 2 squads of Incursors and a squad of Infiltrators, and we've taken the comms arrays on the Infiltrators, which I believe lets them get reroll hits as if they were near a Phobos captain. Again, not something that I often take on Infiltrators. I like the Helix Gauntlet on the Infiltrator, but the comms array, don't know if it does that much, right? Yeah, if they're always considered to be in the range of reroll Rites of Battle or Tactical Precision. Now, in my opinion, Infiltrators don't really do any damage. I mean, they've got their bolt rifles that have no AP. They automatically wound on 6s. So at best, within 12 inches, you can get 10 shots out of a squad. You're gonna roll 1-1, and then you're gonna get to reroll it. I don't know if 5 points is gonna be worth 1 extra hit potentially with an Infiltrator squad. Strength 4, 0 AP, 1 damage doesn't really do any damage whatsoever. I mean, probably one of the reasons people are hating squats right now is that power armor and bolters are kind of crap, and those are just power armor troops with bolters. Would the Phobos thing be good against Tau? I mean, the Lord of Deceit is cool, but with a few more points, you could buy Librarian Dreadnought, more survivable and a lot more what the F pwn. I mean, the Librarian Dreadnought has problems in his own knucking futs. I think this Librarian is good with the Null Zone. I actually think it's legitimately good against certain armies. It can turn games, it can win games, Null Zone. And Null Zone, in my opinion, is probably stronger than the Librarian Dreadnought. But it's kind of situational. And like I said, if you're going to use Null Zone right, you're going to have to probably end up sacrificing the character, because once you cast Null Zone, he just melts, he just dies as well. If you change your squad of Infiltrators to Assault Intercessors, and you can run Librarian Dread instead of Phobos. Let's keep looking through. So I don't know if the Librarian I don't think his powers are that effective. I guess like the strength of Phobos is the forward deploy, the redeploy, and I guess in terms of like Phobos doing damage, it's Incursors with the knives, right? Infiltrators are a very defensive unit. They protect your backfield, but they really aren't a damaging unit at all. That's why I guess I don't like the Infiltrator comms array on them. We then have a Death Company Dreadnought, Furioso Fist, Heavy Flamers, Melt-A-Gun, Smoke Launchers. I think that's fine. Some people like double Heavy Flamer because it protects a little bit against being charged, but yeah, a Heavy Flamer and Melt-A-Gun, by my opinion, is absolutely fine. We then have a Death Company with 2 Thunderhammers, and then 3 guys with chainswords, a plasma pistol, a bolt pistol, and a bolt pistol. If you can, I would swap that plasma pistol for an infernal pistol. I think plasma pistols, and this is one thing, like if Space Marine Codex 2.0 comes out, I really want to see I really want to see ones on plasmas killing their own units dropped. I mean, Space Marines are supposed to be like this really advanced. We're supposed to be like this really advanced, strong, durable race. Why have we still got plasma guns on high power that are killing their own models, right? Like, yeah. I don't think plasma pistols are really that useful. You can do 1 damage with them, because it's too risky to ever fire them on high power. So you're much better off spending the infernal pistol, and although you will get to shoot it less, occasionally you can do 8 damage with an infernal pistol. It's just a lot better. The problem I have, a couple of you guys obviously like the Librarian Dreadnought. The problem I have with the Librarian Dreadnought is no invulnerable save, meaning in the current meta, where there's like so many D3+3 weapons, he'll get killed in like 2 shots and you won't get invulnerable save. And the other problem I have with him is his weapon skill of 3 kind of lets him down. I mean, that's his biggest weakness, possibly. I mean, it's a big weakness, he doesn't have invulnerable save, and there's no way to give him it, but his other big weakness is his weapon skill of 3. You're relying on him charging and doing a lot of damage with your charge, and you can whiff with weapon skill 3. It's like you can't really whiff with weapon skill 2, but you can whiff with weapon skill 3. You could jump in and miss a bunch of attacks. If you put Shield of Sanguinius on the Librarian Dreadnought, the problem is solved. That's usually what I do. Yeah, I guess that's true, Kevin. I kind of feel that the best way to play the Sangri discipline right now is the Unleash Rage build, probably. Like an Unleash Rage / Wings build, where your main objective for the first few turns is to unleash rage on bigger squads of models, and then maybe join the fight later in. Yeah. Okay. We have an Ironclad Dreadnought, Chainfist, Heavy Flamer, 2 Hunter Killers, Hurricane Bolters, the Assault Launchers. I think the Assault Launchers are wasted points. We've talked about this before. In most cases, the Assault Launchers are they're going to cost you 1 CP to use, right? And it's going to do D3 damage, D3 mortal wounds to the enemy. Where is the Assault Launchers rule? Yeah, the Assault Launchers. So, if the enemy braces, they take D3 mortal wounds. If the enemy ducks for cover until the end of the turn, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristics, and that unit cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend. So it's almost like, if they think they're going to not do much damage in Overwatch, then they just say like, oh well, I'm going to duck for cover, or I'm going to try and Overwatch, but not many people are going to try and Overwatch a toughness 8 Ironclad. So for the most part, I just feel it's a wasted CP. I run Centurions, and they can obviously have Assault Launchers, I did run Centurions for like half the edition of 9th edition, and I guess the Assault Launchers are free on the Centurions? Yeah, like, you don't have to pay for them. And like, I just never shot the Assault Launchers. It just seems really situational. We then have a Sangri Guard, 2 Infernal Pistols, 2 Power Fists, a bunch of axes, a couple of swords. The squad's actually pretty optimized. 2 Infernal Pistols is maybe overkill. You can probably maybe just do 1, but 2 does mean if you ever get to shoot both of them, it's good. You then have a Vanguard Veteran Squad with Thunder Hammers, 3 Hammers, 2 Lightning Claws, all Storm Shields. Again, that's pretty good. You've got the Land Speeder with the Multi-Melta, that's fine. You've got Eliminators with the Las Fusils, and Quake Bolts on the Sergeant, that's good as well. You've got Eradicators with the Heavy Metal Rifles. I don't like the Heavy Metal Rifles, I feel like they're too immobile. And then you got the Whirlwind. Okay, so I think regular Metal Rifles on the Eradicators is probably fine. I just think the mobility of the heavies is kind of really lets them down. The extra damage you do on the heavies is probably going to be offset by the fact that like one turn you're not going to be in range, or you're not going to be able to shoot because you're too slow. So I think that the cheaper eradicators are my preferred, and I used both. And I tried playing with both in games. You can target any unit within 9 of the assault launchers and use it for charging SG units, but how often, right? Alright, yeah, you can assault launcher any unit, but I mean, for the most part, the enemy's just going to take D3 mortal wounds. Thank you so much, Daziv, for subscribing. I appreciate it. I don't think D3 mortal wounds for 1 CP is worth the 5 points. Like, how often are you going to play that in a battle? I guess if we talk about Blood Angels not being strong at the moment, you have to optimize their builds really, really well. Then, I mean, optimizing things that potentially could do like a couple of mortal wounds for 5 points, but unlikely. I mean, it's fine. I guess it's not the end of the world that you've got an ironclad assault launcher on it. I just think in practice, like if you play a bunch of games, you're probably going to find that this is really underwhelming. The point of it would be to deny the Overwatch, but the opponent can basically just be like, oh fuck it, I'll take a couple of mortal wounds and still Overwatch anyway, right? So you're paying points and command points to try and prevent Overwatch, but I mean, you already got Overwatch prevention in the Whirlwind, right? So I'd probably work around that. You said at the beginning, when we started looking at the list, that the plan was to run Oath or Veil, in terms of like, you've got 2 librarians, so you're going to try and like Psychic Mastery and stuff like Psychic Interrogation, which again, by doing Psychic Interrogation, you're limiting one of your librarians to basically, one librarian won't be able to cast any powers, right? Which, again, I guess makes me worried about this librarian with the null zone. I think, based on the fact that you said in L.A. Davies, thank you so much for subscribing as well. Based on the fact that you said that you had a captain on a bike, or a chaplain on a bike, sorry, I'd probably lose the captain in full boss armor. I don't think he's that useful. If you want to move Lord of Deceit, you can move Lord of Deceit onto one of your other characters. What does Stealth Adept even do? Again, if I don't know what it does, it means it's probably not a strong choice. Stealth Adept. Unless this warlord is the closest eligible target, enemy models cannot target him with range attacks. Yeah, I'd lose that for sure. I mean, just deploy your Phobos librarian near a squad of Incursors, and like they can't target him anyway, right? So I think this is probably a worthless warlord trait, or a very low value warlord trait. I'd probably move like Lord of Deceit onto him if you want the flexibility of redeploying your Phobos units. I get that. I think that's strong. I think I would take the chaplain on the bike. I'd probably make him the warlord and lose out like Armor Indomitus and potentially Soul Warden off the librarian, give them to the chaplain on a bike. I may even pay the 1 CP for Angel's Exemplar to give him a second warlord trait. You could give him something like Gift of Foresight, Iron Resolve, something to make him even stronger. Gift of Foresight combos amazingly well with Armor Indomitus, by the way, in terms of like being able to survive. I'd lose the comms array on the infiltrators. Infiltrators don't do damage. And honestly, I think if you're running a Whirlwind, right? The reason to run the infiltrators is to sit in the backfield and like screen objectives. If you already got a Whirlwind, the Whirlwind's quite a decent size. You can kind of screen some backfield objectives with a Whirlwind and a regular squad of guys. So at that point, you might be better just running 3 squads of Incursors, save yourself 20 points, or 2 squads of Incursors. You could even run a squad of Intercessors or something, just something cheaper. Because you've got the Whirlwind in the backfield anyway, the Whirlwind +5 guys, that's a big area of deep strike denial, and I mean that's the whole point of the Infiltrators, right? I don't think you need Infiltrators and a Whirlwind in the backfield. I think it's one or the other. Your 2 melee Dreadnoughts are cool. They're something I might actually consider reserving. One of the melee Dreadnoughts, bring it in the side of the board. It would be a good use of CP, I think, to bring one in. The Sangri Guard and the Vanguard Veterans are fine. The Death Company, swap out that Plasma Pistol for an Infernal Pistol, or maybe even try and run them with 3 hammers. The idea of the Phobos Captains are cool, but they didn't design to be all that effective, right? Yeah, I mean, when I used the Phobos Captain, I ran him with the Warlord trait that gives his gun +1 damage, because I think his gun's 3 damage, right? So I think his Warlord trait potentially makes his gun damage, it's like Master Marksman can make his gun damage 4, and you can use Lookout Sir for it, so you have a 4 damage sniper rifle, but the problem is, it's only strength 4, and it's only -2, so actually, it's great as a 4 damage weapon that can Lookout Sir, but most enemies will have most of the enemies that you're going to be sniping will have like a 4 up or a 5 up invulnerable save, so if you actually hit with the gun every single turn, and even if you wounded with the gun every single turn, you're only going to fail to save twice or 3 times out the battle. So, I just think our characters do so much more damage in melee combat, and that's you said, Foz, you had the Chaplain on the bike. I think that's much stronger in this list. The Chaplain can also synergize really well with the Sangri Guard, giving them the +1 to hit. The Vanguard Veterans, letting them reroll all their hits, which would be really good for the Thunderhammers. And yeah, I mean, maybe my opinion is heavy melter rifles are too restrictive in terms of movement, so you could decide if you agree or you disagree with that, but those 15 points you could spend elsewhere as well. Maybe try and get like an extra man into your Vanguard Veteran squad, that would be useful. One thing that's pretty neat about like Vanguard Veterans is you can take really cheap models. In terms of what I mean is like Vanguard Veterans with a Lightning Claw and Storm Shield, and I guess the jump packs on top, they're 30 points, right? So if you lose the Storm Shield and the Lightning Claw and just give them a Chainsword and a Bolt Pistol, they're like 22 points. So it's quite nice to have like a super cheap 22 point model as well in the squad. I always tend to find one way I keep some of my Vanguard Veteran squads cheap is like some guys with chainswords, because you know guys are going to die in the squad. So if you just got cheap chainsword guys you can allocate wounds to, and they can die first before your super expensive like 39 point Thunderhammer models. That's pretty useful, right? Yeah, I mean, I guess the Phobos Captain linked with Eliminators to let them reroll 1s isn't bad. It isn't bad. I just think you'll get more value out of a super survivable Chaplain that can jump around the board on his bike. There's relative bumps it to strength 5, -2/3 damage with a mortal and successful wound roll. The Warlord trait, that's 5 damage, but man, needs a darking. I didn't realize there was a better gun he could take, Jim. But my experience with the Captain in Phobos Armor is he's swingy, right? Like some games, you'll snipe a couple of characters and you'll make some good kills and you'll think like, great, he's a brilliant character. Other games you'll find he's totally worthless. So I think there's a lot to be said for the general consensus of this list. I think you could get 20 points back on this Infiltrator squad. I think you need to spend like 30 more points on your character. I think you could easily get 15 more points back on the Eradicators. Probably get 5 points back on one of these assault launchers. And then maybe that lets you get one more Vanguard Veteran with like a Chainsword and a Storm Shield, or maybe even just Chainsword Bolt Pistol to keep it nice and cheap. Yeah, new Harlequins are going to be pretty difficult to beat right now. Alright, well, we'll score the list as is. And you guys can take my opinions, or Foz, you can take my opinion from there. I guess you've got 3 OBSEC units and a Whirlwind, and I mean, so your OBSEC is like 8.5. You're gonna OBSEC a bunch of stuff. you're kind of light on firepower. You've got, like, what is it, 6 Angelus bolt guns, Eradicators, Eliminators, a Whirlwind. The Dreadnoughts have a little bit of firepower, but you don't really have much in terms of, like, clearing horde-based lists, so I'm going to say it's like a 7.5. Clearing hordes isn't as prevalent as it was, I guess, right? Not many armies are running like a lot of horde-based units, but I guess against orcs, for example, a big orc list, you might struggle a bit in terms of like clearing out some of their units. There isn't a whole heap of, or even if you come up against like Dukari with a bunch of raiders that I played last week, you might struggle to open up these raiders. Las Fusils and Eradicators are really inefficient at killing Dukari's raiders. Yeah, and like Strength 4 bolters from the Sangri Guard are also super efficient. Inefficient, sorry, not efficient. That's what I'm trying to say. Anti-monster vehicles, I think we're on about an 8.5. I think you need to swap out the Chaplain. I really don't like the Phobos Captain. I don't think it's that straight. I don't think it's that powerful. Combo, mobility-wise, I mean, there's a lot of mobility in the list. The two Dreadnoughts aren't mobile, so maybe you could strategically reserve them. I'd only strategically reserve like the Sangri Guard or Vanguard Veterans if you're really scared. Otherwise, I'd be trying to find a place for them to get onto the board and like move forward and get into like an offensive position. And then specialization. So we've got a couple of denies. We have a fight last. We have no Overwatch. We've got Overwatch denial. Units for actions. I think we're okay with the 3 Phobos units. 3 damage weapons. The 3 Eradicators, the 2 Eliminators, the multi-melta here. You know what, you've got a good number of 3 damage weapons, actually. Yeah, really good. Probably close to 20. So, 3 damage weapons is totally fine. You have Soul Warden at the moment, but I think you should probably change it off that character and put it on probably maybe the Chaplain if you consider switching him out. And then 7 CP, which overall is really not bad as well. Maybe there is 1 more CP to be spent. But, although there might be 1 more CP to be spent, you could probably save 1 in dropping Stealth Adept, because I really don't think that's a valuable choice here at all. I don't think you need it. So, 41 points, which is actually pretty... What's the word I'm looking for? Pretty decent, considering you have 2 terrible characters in your list, or maybe just the Chaplain, the Captain in the Phobos armor is the terrible one. The Librarian in Phobos armor, maybe what would make me more comfortable running the Librarian in Phobos armor, and I guess this is why I just said terrible, even though I don't think he's actually as terrible, is I would take a different power on him. And the power I would take is the one that restricts movement. Is it Hallucination? I forget the name of it. This tab is lagging. Shrouding. I mean, Hallucination is good as well because it makes an enemy -1 to hit. But no, the one I would take is probably Tenacious Curse, which is select 1 enemy model that cannot fly and is within 18 inches. That unit suffers a mortal wound, and its movement and characteristics subtract 2 from advance and charge rolls is made. I mean, that can be really useful if you come up against something that's kind of lumbering but kind of really nasty in combat. For example, like a big enemy character that could just crush all over you, and you really want to slow him down and keep him out of combat for 1 more turn. I mean, Mind Raid is okay as well to sort of farm command points. Shrouding and Soul Sight. Again, I'd probably lose Soul Sight. Giving the Phobos units buffs to their like hits and stopping the enemies like gaining the benefit of cover is like really low value. Phobos units in general Except Incursors with their knives, full boss units don't kill anything. Just think of them like, when you shoot full boss guns, don't expect to kill anything. You're only going to kill stuff with the full boss units when they use their knives in combat, the Incursors. Anything else that gets killed by a full boss gun is just luck. Or just think of it as blind luck. Don't expect it to ever kill things, I think is what I want to say. Jim says, I'm running 10 Death Company, 4 Hammers, 5 Infernal Pistols, and 1 Vanilla. It's a great turn 1 bomb with Forlorn. Yeah, I mean, it is a cool turn 1 bomb with Forlorn. Jim, how do you feel about running it on the new map where you can't Forlorn Fury into No Man's Land, though? Which units could be the best ones to count in Morgan Val because she's very tough? I usually kill Morgan Val in 1 round of combat with either, like, Thunderhammers are good against her. Sangri Guard are kind of ineffective because she's half damage, but Thunderhammers are good. I need to be right back. My daughter's just... Alright, sorry about that. Okay. The painting competition will be announced hopefully in the next couple of weeks. There was way more entries than I'd thought, and it's taken me a while to get all the data together. Okay, next is a list by Steve T. Okay, we're going to go over the list first, and then we'll read his comments afterwards. So this is a battalion detachment coming in at 7 CP. And we've got 2 extra relics of the chapter. We start with the captain on a bike, who is Artisan of War, Gift of Foresight, Adamantium Mantle, Angel's Artifice, Chapter Master, Infernal Pistol, Thunderhammer. I mean, I like everything about this character. I would like to see Armor Indomitus on him, but Angel's Artifice gives him a bit of survivability as well. And it gives them toughness 6 and 1 more wound. Sangri Priest with Chief Apothecary, Selfless Healer, Hero of the Chapter, and Armor Indomitus. And Armor Indomitus is designed, I guess, to try and keep the Apothecary alive. I think if people want to kill the Priest, they can probably kill the Priest, right? I think Teeth of Terra is a better pick on the Sangri Priest. I think that the Sangri Priest should be hiding, and Armor Indomitus is only for like, oh shit, I put him in a bad position. Good evening, Crimson Jacket. Thanks for being here. And I was going to put those units on the Eliminators. I mean, the Eliminators can move in and out of cover, Foz. So they can move, shoot, move, right? So they shouldn't really need... I guess, I think it's an edge play though, right? Honestly. I don't think... I mean, Eliminators hit on 2s, I guess. If you move them, they hit on 3s. I think there's... I think I could be on board with you going for 1 defensive power for the Eliminators, but I wouldn't go 2. And you're very welcome for the advice, no problem. Steve sent me a different list a while back. Where do you send it, Steve? In Discord? What's your name in Discord? Or was it... Because the problem with YouTube comments is I don't see replies to existing. I only see new comments. So I'm going to need you to either send it to me as a new comment on YouTube or as a DM in Discord. I mean, that's just the way that YouTube works. Meanwhile, I will answer some questions in the chat. Why Teeth of Terror if you're going to hide them? Because later in the game, sellers, you want to go offensive with them. And Teeth of Terror actually gives the Sangri Priest 8 attacks, I believe. Because he gets 3 base, 2 more for charging later in the game, and then 3 more for Teeth of Terror. He has Weapon Skill too. So you're talking 8 attacks. Hitting on 2s, probably wounding enemy infantry on 2s. He can shred 2 wound infantry later in the game. Mentioned you in Discord. Cool. Alright, thanks, Steve. And you could have just said, I would have read it in the chat, but I do really appreciate the $5. Thank you. Are your comments at the top of the list still valid? Or it's just, do you know what, I'll keep the comments there and you can tell me after if they're still valid. Okay. I agree, I like Teeth of Terror on him if you're not putting it on a bite captain or a jump captain. Yeah, I think if the enemy want to kill a priest, they'll kill a priest. I don't think Armor Indomitus helps keep him alive, right? Like, he doesn't have enough wounds, he doesn't have an invulnerable save. I guess Armor Indomitus just gives you like one turn of like, oh shit, I put him in a bad position, I should keep him alive. Whereas Armor Indomitus on like a better character, like the captain, can just be like Angel Sacrifice and just shrug it off. So anyway, Steve's list, take 2. It is the captain of the bike. This time he has changed out Armor Indomitus, so he went back to the future and realised that I was going to criticise his choice, and he's fixed it. He's also changed out the Sangri Priest, so he has no war gear or relic right now, which is fine. He doesn't need to have one. I think if you want to give him one, I think Teeth of Terror or possibly Icon of the Angel are the 2 good choices. But he has a Librarian now with Unleash Shield of Sanguineous Wings, and a Force Axe, and Icon of the Angel. Alright, interesting. So we've got the Unleash Rage. And something actually came up in my game just like, was it last week or the week before, where I didn't actually realise Unleash Rage doesn't need line of sight. So that's good to know. So you can Unleash Rage, and I think it's 18 inches, right? But it's not, you do not need line of sight. Which would have made no 12 inches, but you don't need line of sight. My bad. So you can hide your Psyker pretty defensively, give your core unit that buff, which is better than I thought it was. Okay. The captain obviously is a really good choice. I like this captain a lot. Why do I see YouTubers mastercrafting a Thunder Hammer on a character for Blood Angel and not using Wrath of Baal? It makes no sense to me. When you actually math hammer that out, Kevin, the difference is minute. In terms of, like, I'm sure I actually did that in one of my slides. Mastercrafted Thunderhammer against Hammer of Baal. If you have, like, Gift of Foresight on the character, I think you'll actually do more damage with the Mastercrafted Thunderhammer. If you factor in the fact that you can reroll 1 hit and wound every turn. So, Hammer of Baal, I guess, right now isn't as good as you might think it should be. Some people prefer Librarius powers for Blood Angels. I mean, they certainly can, Highland Phoenix, but I do think that Unleash Rage on a squad of, like, Vanguard Veterans, Terminators, probably even more so in the Vanguard Veterans, it can actually be huge, right? Like, I had it, like, last week where I think I got, like, 5 extra Thunderhammer hits or something, like, and Null Zone isn't... The Null Zone Librarian, I don't know if he's as good as he was at the beginning of the edition. You have to remember, a lot of things got crapper over this edition. Like, a lot crapper. So for me, I don't know if the Null Zone Librarian is still... Like, I haven't used him in a while. Do I still think he's super strong? I mean, with the way the meta's been changing and everything, I'm not sure I do, because... Like, the way I'm making my Blood Angels work right now is I'm bringing stuff with loads of invulnerable saves, so Null Zone actually hurts myself. So I'm actually 100% fine with the combination of wings, shield, and unleash rage. I mean, at this point, considering he's 140 points, and you've got no psychic mastery upgrade on him, you might be able to just switch this guy out for Mephiston. You know that? Could be interesting. And then give Icon of the Angel to your priest. Could be something you could do, Steve. I don't hate Mephiston at 140 points. I still think he needs a +1 to cast, but I think his toughness 5 is 2 up, 5 up, kind of give him a bit more staying power than a regular librarian. Obviously, his force axe is strength, or his force sword, I guess, is strength 10, so that's nice. Assault Intercessors and Cursors and Cursors. I mean, this is what I'm running as well, so this is 3 fine troop choices. Elites, we've got the Death Company with the Thunderhammers and the one with the Chainsword, and I guess this makes sense to have potentially, I guess, Unleash Rage. You know, so you're going to get those extra 6s early on in the game, proccing extra hits. You also have the Sangri Ancient to give them +1 to hit, potentially, at the start of the game if you fall on Fury. Rites of War on the Ancient as well, and Wrath of Baal to get additional movement. Sangri Guard with 3 axes and 4 swords. I think you're better leaning more into the axes right now. I think axes are definitely better than swords. It feels like every enemy has invulnerable saves, and there's a lot of toughness 5 enemies out there as well, so for me anyway, axes definitely feel better than swords right now. I've actually gone off swords completely on Sangri Guard. And I guess that's probably why I don't think the Null Zone character maybe syncs up all that well, because like Vanguard Veterans, Lightning Claws are -2, Thunderhammers are -2, so we quite often just getting -3. So -3 isn't, with a Null Zone on -3, you know, like if you're up against enemies that got like 2 up saves, for example, they're still getting a save on a 5. So Null Zone isn't really pulling as much weight as it maybe was before. I don't like Mephiston's rules in principle. They should just be better. I mean, yeah, we could all say that, Highland Phoenix, but I guess we gotta play with what we give. I do like him more at 140 points than 155. I'll tell you that for nothing. But I mean, it's kind of obvious. But 140 points, I actually think like he's actually kind of okay. He sticks around a bit, you know, toughness 5, 2 up save, 5 up, get him in cover for a 1 up. How do you feel on fists on Sangri Guard? I think it's okay if you just take like 1 or 2 in the squad. It's going to help against certain armies like orcs. But overall, I think they're too expensive to like have a whole squad of Sangri Guard with fists. And 2 damage weapons are kind of terrible right now. There's far too much stuff in the meta that's -1 damage. So yeah, I actually don't recommend you take more than 1 squad of Sangri Guard at the moment. We then have Terminators with Thunderhammers and Lightning Claws and a Teleport Armor, and then another squad of Terminators with Thunderhammers and Lightning Claws. 1 with 3 hammers 2 and 1 with 2 hammers 3. And then the squad of Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws, and then the Whirlwind. So my thought here is actually, and maybe this is I don't know if 3 jump pack units, and they're all small units, a 5, a 6, and is this another 6? A 6, yeah? No, a 7 here, sorry. I don't know if a 5, a 6, and a 7. I don't know if I should be able to do that math. 18. I don't know if 18 jump models is enough to justify the Sangri Ancient. I mean, it's probably too many points in character, Steve, because you've got 305 plus 155, 305. So it's like 460 plus this guy, 570. Like, you've got really good melee combat, but you have very little firepower in this list, period, right? Like, you've literally got the Sangri Guard bolters, and that's kind of it. I mean, I guess we've got some strength 4 AP 0 bolters in here, but like we just need to kind of, they don't kill anything. And yeah, 570 points in characters. It feels to me like it's too much. 2 squads of 7. Oh, sorry, yeah. Sangri Guard is 7 as well. I mean, I like your melee threat, for sure. And I kind of see what you're doing, I think, with the priest, the librarian, the chapter master, and the ancient. So you can buff the living crap out of the Death Company, right? You can make it that they get +1 to hit, you can make it that they can reroll the hits, you can give them exploding 6s, you can put them in the Assault Doctrine. I just don't know if that's worth 4 characters. Or 570 points onto like a 175 squad unit. Because, yeah, the Death Company will kill something, right? The Death Company will 100% kill something, because they'll basically be hitting on 3s, they're rerolling all their misses, they're exploding 6s, they're getting 1 extra attack from charging, they're getting 1 extra attack from Savage Echoes, so you're getting, 20 Thunderhammer hits? So 20 Thunderhammer hits, hitting on 3s, rerolling. I actually know the math for that, so it would be 20 times 0.88. So you're making 17.5 Thunderhammer hits with the Death Company. With all those buffs, and that's before we include the exploding 6s. Exploding 6s will be 1/6 of that, so times that by 1.66666, repeating, of course. So you basically end up with the Death Company making 20 Thunderhammer hits in turn 1 if they fall on Fury, and you manage to cast all your powers, etc., etc. I just don't know if you have much survivability or much staying power, and I think that's the thing that concerns me. Because if the enemy has a lot of good screens, for example, you get nothing to shoot those screens away. So if your Death Company can't make that charge in turn 1 and get off those Thunderhammers, and I mean those Thunderhammers will kill just about anything in the game, don't get me wrong, because it'll be strength 8 with +1 to wound. And then -3, right? So the Thunderhammer, the Death Company will kill anything that they go into, probably. And you do have the way to turn off Overwatch as well with the Whirlwind, yeah. I think my opinion is, and I guess you guys know this, that I think a list should have about 500 points of shooting. And I generally don't like spending more than I'm trying to think how many points I'm spending on characters at the moment. I think I'm spending about 425, maybe 430 points on characters, and I don't like spending more than that on characters. I think characters are brilliant at buffs, but I think there's a line there between there's a line between hey, it's brilliant to have a bunch of buffs, but there's definitely a line between you can bring too many buffs and not enough units to actually just do the work. And that's kind of where I think this lies a little bit. And yeah, I mean, the one character that's the sticker to me is I don't know if... I mean, I like the fact you've got Rites of War on the Ancient, because obviously adding OBSEC is good, but I mean, you could add that to one of your other characters back here, you know? But I guess it doesn't change too much, right? I guess what I mean by it doesn't change too much is even if you cut that one character, let's say 110 points, and you maybe added another model or 2 to the Vanguard Veteran Squad and got some Thunderhammers in there as well, or I suppose you could even make the Vanguard Veteran Squad a 10-man Vanguard Veteran Squad, because that would take 90 points, right? And then you could take 10-man Vanguard Veterans, and you could basically have a Thunderhammer on the Sergeant in both squads, essentially. Or you could because you could combat squad them, or you could actually just, because you're losing this Ancient, you could actually just make 2 5-man Thunderhammer Sergeant Vanguard Veteran squads. You're still committed to all-out melee, which I find very difficult to play right now. Is the Sangri Ancient part of the Sangri Guard unit by itself? No. I asked because the Heirs of Ezekielian, I think it is, giving +1 to hit within 6 inches. That'll be his Warlord. So the Warlord is going to be the chaplain on the bike. He's going to be... So the Sangri Ancient will get +1 to hit, I believe, as well, if he's within 6 of the Warlord. Does a mono Death Company army work? I mean, it can. It just they can't do any actions. So if you're on a map that requires you to do actions for the primary plus, then Death Company aren't that great. There's not enough jump pack units to fully benefit from the Ancients, says Highland Phoenix, which I think in some ways is potentially the part of it. And then Steve also says that you can buff the hell out of all 3 jump pack units to ease the pressure on the Terminators. I don't disagree with any of that. I just think that, like... And from a lower point, or from where our codex was when it was released, right? Like, this is the pseudo Blood Angels army you would expect, right? It's all of our best units. It's the Terminators, it's the Sangri Guard, it's the Assault Terminators, it's the Vanguard Veterans. All of our best units with a Whirlwind. But I think which is fine, and I mean, 3 of the characters here are really good, and the Ancient is kind of good as well. But I think the thing that I just want to bring up, Steve, and I guess this is up to you to make the call on, because I can't really tell you how to play, I guess. But what I can say is, if you go look, and I think over the last year, I think there was 4 Blood Angels lists. I mean, there's a playlist on my channel, right? If you go onto the YouTube channel and you go to, you just scroll down to like the playlist on, I think it's like competitive army lists. So there was this one, there was this Blood Angels with 7 for 1. I think there was another one here, tournament winning list. Yep. I think this was also a winning list, but I mean, I guess if you just went through these, the lists that actually won tournaments last year, all of them included a good amount of shooting for Blood Angels, right? Like, it was like double Eradicator squads, double Eliminator squads. I think the third one was like Contemptor Dreadnoughts and Redemptor Dreadnoughts. So, by not having... what was the loadout in the Terminators? 3 of Thunderhammers and 2 with Lightning Claws, and the other one was 3 Lightning Claws and 2 Thunderhammers and Teleport Hovers in both. So I don't dislike any of this. I'm just saying that I think without the fire support, Blood Angels aren't in a great place right now. I think we know that. I mean, the Blood Angels win rate on the tournament scene right now is low, but if this is something you enjoy playing, Steve, then, I mean, I think my main criticism or my main point would be get rid of the Ancient and make it a 10-man Vanguard Veteran squad or make it 2-5 with the Thunderhammers, because you could fit that in and you'd have like 2 points to spare or something, because you could fit that in and get 2 points to spare. Yes, it slightly devalues your Death Company, but it's not a huge amount, right? You still have the Chapter Master rerolls on the Death Company. Is there room for a Gladiator Baal in here? Possibly not. I don't think there would be. You would have to make like a serious choice or a serious switch to include some fire support. And it's tough, right? It's obviously tough to do both things. You can't be a master of everything. I mean, to do some serious fire support, you'd have to lose at least 1 unit of Jump Pack and the Ancient, and potentially cut some points elsewhere, like in weapon options or another character. It's tough. But it's just worth thinking that the Blood Angels lists that have gone full combat haven't been winning tournaments, right? But in terms of like having a very melee-focused list that sort of plays straight into what Blood Angels are quote-unquote good at, I mean, this is as close as you're gonna get, but I just hate what was that, like, said, like 570 points on characters, yeah. And to my opinion, that's just way too much. And I've thought about this, honestly, Steve, I've thought about this a few times. I've thought, like, you know, with the points cost drop to Death Company, I was like, could I run a big Death Company? And could I run just like a bunch of Thunderhammers and buff the living hoo-ha out of them? And I mean, you could actually buff them one step further than you've gone, right? You could run somebody with a Quake Bolt. So instead you would have the Death Company hitting on 2s with their Thunderhammers rather than 3s. But I mean, I mean, yeah, what's the math? Like, if you took Death Company and you removed the Ancient, which is giving them +1 to hit, right? So you've got the 20 Thunderhammers. This time you're only hitting on 4s but re-rolling. And you're an Assault Doctor and all that. You would only hit 0.75 and you would times that by 1.1666. So you'd still get 17.5 Thunderhammer hits. You only lose 3 Thunderhammer hits by losing the Ancient. I'd argue that 17 Thunderhammer hits is going to kill just as much as 20 Thunderhammer hits, right? They're on -3, they're all 3 damage. You're talking a difference of like, what? Not times 2. You're talking either 52 damage or like, it was like 20.3, or 60 damage. So if you can do 52 damage, that's probably going to be enough to significantly impact whatever. So at that point, maybe the Ancient is irrelevant, and you go for the 10 Vanguard Veterans with Thunderhammers. It's going to be... Yeah, it just is what it is. Blood Angels lists like this are decent, but they're not winning tournaments. You have to play... Even if you play them to the highest level, and I guess the one guy, what was it, Jack, that took it to the LVO and who's playing at the absolute highest level, arguably one of the best probably Blood Angels players in the world, wasn't able to win a tournament with an all melee list like this. And he's part of that Art of War YouTube channel that have like, they do coaching and they're very serious about the game. So if they're not able to win tournaments with it, arguably no one can. I know that I don't think I could win a tournament with this list. I mean, I struggle to win a tournament with the shooting list, but I think there's too many counters for this at the moment. Yeah, there's just like Drukhari are going to be an absolute nightmare for a list like this. I actually don't know if you could beat Drukhari because you've got no way to open up their transports. So basically, all their troops are protected. They're shooting you with all their stupidly strong Strength 8, -4, I think, Dark Lances, and hitting on 2s and all this nonsense. And then they can just pile out the transports around you and kill you and probably out-obsec you as well. Okay. You could swap one squad of Terminators for a shooting squad of Terminators with Stormbolters, but I don't know if that really helps. I mean, when I talk about fire support, I talk about like Eliminators, Eradicators, Inceptors, Dreadnoughts with Plasma Guns, even like Laser Destroyers or something, right? Okay, so OBSEC, you've got the 3 troop choice and you've got the banner, so you're probably actually really strong on OBSEC. You have very little anti-horde infantry, probably just as little as that last list, maybe slightly more. No, I think it's pretty much identical. Anti-monster vehicles, I mean, we're pretty good, and we've got a good number of 3 damage weapons, right? We've got 5, 9, Chapter Master Librarian, so it's about 11 3 damage weapons. Oh yeah, I mean, it's maybe a little bit lower as well, actually. Let's say like a 9.5 though, because Lightning Claws are really good. In terms of like their 1 damage weapons that don't get debuffed, and they also get the +1 to hit and wound, the +1 to wound now, which is generally very strong. You've also got the Unleash Rage and the buffs that we talked about. So I think you can kill big targets, but yeah, Drukhari are going to be a problem. Mobility, I'm going to say like 7.5. I mean, both the Terminators have teleport homers. Do have Wrath of the Baal Ancient, so do you know what, we'll say for 8 as well. We've got Overwatch Denial, we've got and Deny. I guess we've got units for actions. 3 damage weapons is maybe a little bit light. CP7 is okay. Protection against mortal wounds, I guess we've got that a bit in the Sangri Priest, so it's going to be about 8. I think 8 is probably going to have to be fair. And although it's not on the list here, like I do feel sad. Like I just don't think you can make these lists work against certain armies right now. I think there's just too many things that are going to counter them. And yeah, I think this is this is just the problem with Blood Angels right now. We have to. The Drukhari player didn't respect my characters. Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't familiar with how good those how strong the chapter master is, I guess. Land Raider Proteus with twin heavy flamer, charge position, and can fit 3 assault Centurions inside. I mean, I do like assault Centurions, Highland. I really do. So what's the best shooting for Blood Angels? Eradicators, Redemptors, Las Fusils, Multi-Melta Devastators. Also Land Speeders can be good with Multi-Meltas. Attack Bikes can be okay with Multi-Meltas. Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts are probably one of the best as well, because they include the 5-up invulnerable save, and they also don't profile in terms of like when they're on 1 wound, they're still shooting at full profile. Tommy. So yeah, those sort of things are going to be the most important. So Steve was originally thinking about 10 Terminators holding the middle with the Sangri Priest, which if they have some cover options will give them a 0-up save, and make them super hard to shift. The Ancient gives it all the jump pack units, obsec, and 2 inches to harass and flank. Whirlwind for suppression, objective holding and deep strike denial, and I guess before you had Intercessors for chaff, and then you were going to maybe combat squad the Vanguard veterans. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's a strong list, Steve, I guess, and I mean it's got all the units that I would probably advise, and like I've got no feedback on it in terms of negative things, except maybe like, I mean, my list at the moment I think is Las Fusel Eliminators for 85 points, Squad of Eradicators for 135 points, and so the 2 of them together is like 210, and then I've got a Land Speeder with the Multi-Melta, that's 70, so that's 280, but the Land Speeder can also do like engage on all fronts. And then I've got a Relic Contemptor Dreadnought with a Multi-Melta Cyclone Missile Launcher and like a Chain Fist for probably like 160, 170 fights. I forget how expensive that is now. But yeah, I think 300-400 points of shooting, it's kind of important for Blood Angels. I mean, I've been using it for a long time this edition, and it's really pushed my win rate from, well, here's the thing, right? I guess like people that know Blood Angels and have known them for a long time and maybe don't go as deep into the problems of the army that I go. And this is one of the reasons that I've been frustrated as of late, I guess, is the problems of the army, I think, are exactly this, right? Like, this is the sort of list that like your average Blood Angels player would think like, hey, this is all my best stuff. I'll take it to a tournament, and then like Blood Angels have a 33% win rate at tournaments. And I honestly had a win rate as low as that until I made changes and started really, because that was what was frustrating me. I was like going, I know I'm not a 33% win rate player because I know my rules really well. I feel like I'm pretty good strategist. I can do all the math in my head pretty quickly. Like, if I'm going to make a charge, I can work out the probabilities. And then I was like on a terrible win rate. And then I made that change. And I think when I made the change, and this is way back at the beginning of the edition, I started running 3 attack bikes with multi-meltas. I think I started running a Leviathan Dreadnought and a Redemptor Dreadnought, and also the Whirlwind. So I actually had like probably 600, maybe even 700 points of fire support at that point, because Leviathan was like 220, Redemptor for 180, 3 attack bikes for 380, and then the Whirlwind for 125. Yeah, so I was running 700 points of shooting, and my win rate went from like I said, not even 50% up to like 90%. And that's kind of just why I think that's kind of why I think that you have to do that. You have to include some of the shooting, Steve. I mean, against certain armies, you obviously don't, but against certain armies, I think that you will have to include that. I think Orcs, Drukhari, maybe even like World Eaters, Ultramarines to a certain extent as well. Like, sometimes you just need to have units that can chip things away from ranged and B, bullet magnets. And if you don't have that, sometimes, yeah. It sucks, Steve, I get it. But that's kind of where we are, I guess. I hope that's useful, and thank you so much for the $5. You could have just sent me the list again. If I had the models, I'd like to attempt a 6-man grav cannon and missile launcher squad for fire support, but I don't. Aggressors. I don't like aggressors right now because I think there's too many things that are -1 damage. And power fists, obviously. Like, I don't know if aggressors power fists. I feel like aggressors are a unit that just suffer because, like, I don't know why their power fists are -1 to hit. I honestly think, like, the whole thing about the aggressors and being in Gravis, why are their power fists -1 to hit? A rapier quad heavy bolter is cheap and annoying. Is it that cheap and is it that annoying? A quad heavy bolter? I don't run rapier cannons. I actually own a couple of rapier cannons, I think, but I don't ever run them. Where is it? Rapier carrier. Quad heavy bolter, 75 points. I mean, I guess that's okay. Toughness 5. 3-up save. I mean, in some ways, it's very much just like an attack bike, is it? But without the maneuverability. Here's the thing, right? So, like, if you play against those new Tau, they have, like, if you're less than strength 8, it's -1 strength. And they can also ignore. Maybe I'm wrong here. There was something that we could fight against that was like -1 strength, can ignore -1 AP and -1 damage. I thought it was new Tau, but maybe it was something to do with the Eldar. But there was something that proved just like how bad our guns are getting, where like a quad heavy bolter would essentially just become a strength 4, 0 AP, 1 damage gun. Power armor should ignore -1, -2 AP. That's kind of one of the things that that's going to be hotly debated, I guess, in the new Space Marine Codex, right? Highland, how do they make power armor good again? How do they make the bolter good again? Because Termagant's guns are better than bolters now. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I guess a rapier cannon isn't a horrible choice, but yeah, I mean, if you just had 75 points to fill and you wanted to have a little bit of fire support, but I do think fire support is important for Blood Angels as it currently stands. Okay, let's check Oscan next, and he's got the best list in the Blood Angels army. In all seriousness, I've made what can be considered the worst possible Blood Angels list of all time. He's hoping to get 0 out of 10. Okay, no one's ever tried this before. He's made the worst Blood Angels list. I mean, well, this will be an entertaining way to finish up the stream tonight. Cool, so it's a 2,000 point list, and he starts with Captain Taiko, who has Selfless Valor. Can he even have Selfless Valor, Captain Taiko? Is that his warlord trait? It could be. I mean, no one runs Captain Taiko. He's got retired now, right? With Selfless Valor. Okay, Selfless Valor. So he can heroically intervene 6 inches. Brilliant. I don't really know why you'd want to do that, considering he has like, I guess a 1 damage melee weapon and 4 attacks. But okay. You also have a lieutenant in Phobos armor. We have a squad of Intercessors, another squad of Intercessors, just with the standard bolt rifles. We have a squad of Reavers with grapple launchers and grav shoots. I mean, okay, now he's kind of taking the piss a little bit. Good evening, Rizio, how you doing? Good evening, Brew and Biscuits. We have a second squad of Reavers with both the grapple shoots and the grav launchers. Right, he's definitely trolling now with this list. He's then got 2 of the Stormspeeder Thunder Strikes. God, when I say that, I'm like, Thunder Strikes? What do they even have? The Thunder Strikes have Okay, so this is a Thunder Strike with like a Strength 10 missile, and then the Strength 9 -3 Las Talons. These things really cry out to be D3+3, don't they? It's so sad that the Space Marine, like, when they do the Space Marine Codex 2.0, they really need to fix all the D6 crap that we have in our Codex. We then have Centurion Devastators, holy crap, 300 points for Devastators with Hurricane Bolters and 2 Heavy Bolters. And he's got 2 squads of them, and they're not core because, for whatever, Centurions didn't get given the core keywords, so you can't do any rerolls on them. So they're just Ballistic Skull 3, 2 Heavy Bolters, and I guess 2 Hurricane Bolters on each one. And then a Storm Raven gunship and an Impulsor. I mean, I think I'm actually just gonna say we're gonna grab up another list, right? And we're just gonna very quickly say, like, because this is a complete troll. I don't even know what type of battalion. It's combat patrol, a detachment. I mean, it's a patrol detachment. All right. Like two units of OBSEC, but they're just intercessors. You can have a 6 for that. Anti-infantry power. I guess your Centurions can do some anti-infantry, but there's no core, so it's average at best. Your Thunder Strikes can do a little bit of damage. I mean, you got the Storm Raven. I mean, sure. There's nothing really. I don't think you've got a single unit that you can. I guess you could put the Centurions in the. Can you put Centurions in a Storm Raven gunship? I don't even know why I'm looking that up. I just think it's. I'm gonna say like an 8. Mobility is like a 5 because you've got multiple squads of Centurions. Maybe a 6. And specialization, you basically have none of these things, right? And you have like very few 3 damage weapons, and you don't have many CP, and your HQ choices are kind of trashy. We'll say a 6, right? Like this list is just overall it's pretty bad. We will grab Brian's list. Do you know what? I've already said at the beginning who we're doing next week. So we'll grab a list that was like 2 weeks away or something. Someone that we haven't seen before, will we? Or do you guys want to just chat for a few minutes about questions, and then maybe that's what we'll do. We'll just chat for a few minutes. If there's any questions or anything that people want to say, I wish I'd looked at that before and realised it was a complete troll list. But, I mean, does this win the prize for the worst Blood Angels list submitted to the stream? Yes. If that's what his goal was, he definitely achieved it. I mean, in some ways, like, some of the stuff together, it's like, well, you've got a bit of clear because you've got the Centurions, and you've got a bit of clear because you've got the Storm Raven, and you do have a drop pod. What the fuck's even in the drop pod? Because there's Centurions, I know, there's nothing that can go in the drop pod. You're just going to drop it on an objective. I guess Captain Taiko can be in a drop pod by himself. I mean, like, that would be the real kicker. Turn 1 drop pod. Turn 1 drop pod. The drop pod comes down, and your opponent's like, oh shit, what's coming out of the drop pod? And it's literally Taiko by himself. There's nothing else that can go in the drop pod with him. I actually want to know if the Centurions can go in the Storm Raven, but I mean, you wouldn't put 600 points to Centurion in a Storm Raven, would you? Because if the Storm Raven dies, like, that would be like, can Centurions go in a... Yeah, okay, you can put Centurions. Each Centurion takes the squad, so you could have 1 squad of Centurions in the Storm Raven. But yeah, no, I guess that list for sure wins the worst list. you can look at my list. Do you know what? It's kind of late, Reziel. I will. I'm not reliably about on Sundays. Okay, I mean, I'll try and look at your list. I think it's 2 weeks from now. Yeah, I do kind of need sleep as well, actually, because last night I fell asleep before we started streaming. Taiko gets into Bloodsong range. I mean, yeah, sure, he gets one shot with his melta gun. Seen a post on the Old Metal Blood Angels Captain pre-Taiko is going to be on order next week. What do people think? Worth picking it up for nostalgia reasons? Do you mean Metal Blood Angel? Do you mean like the model that was this one? This guy's going to be on pre-order? Surely not. I mean, his... Is he? I never had this one. This must have been first edition. What do you think you need in your list, Blood Angels Commander, for emerging meta? I'm struggling, to be honest, Highland Phoenix, with like Tau, Custodes, Dukari, Harlequins, I guess Tyrannids, probably as soon as the book's released. I'm not sure we're competitive with any of those armies at the moment. I don't think there's anything that we can necessarily put in our lists that could fix that. You know, someone actually put in the comments, they were like, you endorsed increase on the Volcon Contemptors, and now look what it's done. They've made, you know, Marines are a pile of shit. And I said, well, I specifically said, and someone can probably find this, I said if they put Volcons up more than 5 points per arm, it'll push them out of being competitive, because they were like borderline if they were competitive anyway. They put them up 10 points per arm. So, yeah, I mean, I endorsed them going up 5 points per arm, but 10 points per arm, yeah, I said it would put them out of competitiveness, and it really has, and I don't run them anymore. Is a Whirlwind Scorpius worth taking alongside the normal Whirlwind? I mean, the Scorpius is possibly not bad. Does it have, does the Scorpius have, what is it, the Martial Legacy? It does, so it costs you a CP to include it. Okay. I mean, that's a bit sucky, but I mean, heavy D3, strength 6 -2, 2 damage blast is decent. The points cost on this thing's fucking expensive, though. I didn't realize it was as much as that. It's only toughness 7, 11 wounds, same survivability as a Whirlwind. I mean, hard to hide multiple Whirlwinds, right? Rezio looked at it and found no real use for it. I mean, I'd been noting down some things that I wanted to get commissioned over the next sort of year, Highland Phoenix, because I don't have as much time to paint as I would like. And the things that I'd thought about getting commissioned was like, I thought about Voidsmen at Arms, because they might help us with like Nachmund data. I thought about a Terrax drill, because I don't own a Terrax drill, and I actually kind of like the Terrax drill. I'd also thought about the Laser Destroyer. I'd also thought about the Proteus. Whether or not I get any of those is up for debate, but the Terrax might be decent. I like that it's a 5-shot melta gun. I also like the Terrax is just insane in close combat. And I mean, with the bonus attacks Blood Angels get, I guess that means the Terrax can be, what is it, dedicated transport, I guess. Okay, so yeah, I like the Terrax. It's toughness 8. It's also 14 wounds. It can also deep strike. And the fact that against enemy vehicles, the drill is D3 plus 6, and its weapon skill doesn't degrade. I kind of like that, and you know what? Quake bolts would be kind of good with that, right? Because then you'd put it on a weapon skill 3 up. So people shit themselves when you field a Laser Destroyer, but yeah, I think I think that, like, where we are right now, invulnerable saves are really important. Alpha Strike sort of is really important. And I don't know what the right fire support choices are for Blood Angels. I've gone back to trying out Eradicators, Eliminators, and I'm still running one Relic Contemptor. But honestly, maybe if I had like a Terrax drill, maybe I would drop the Relic Contemptor and just run a Terrax instead. It's about the same point cost, I guess. I do like that it's a 5-shot melt gun as well. So, I mean, it's kind of like an Alpha Strike melt gun, right? But yeah, it's tough right now. I don't really have an answer. Hit me up on Discord, Highland Phoenix. We can have a chat. But I think the next GT I'm trying to get a tournament for is in November. So for the next 2 or 3 months, maybe even 3 or 4 months, I'm just going to be experimenting and playing around with stuff. I guess that's why I've been running my fist on a bunch. See, I've gone off Inceptors as well, Rezio, just because -1 damage enemies will just totally counter Plasma Inceptors, and Plasma Inceptors are so expensive as well. Is it possible to build an Invuln list only save? Not for Blood Angels, it's not. Not at the moment. What's bad about fielding Devastator squad for heavy support? Nothing, I guess. The problem is going to be multi-meltas and grav cannons are the best, and their range is probably going to be your big problem with those. And that's why Eradicators are possibly better than Devastator squads, because at least they can move and shoot reasonably well. Reziel says you might as well drop all 2 damage weapons then. I mean, I've dropped pretty much all my 2 damage weapons bar 1 squad of Sangri Guard, I think, in my list. Because, yeah, the -1 damage enemies, it seems like there's just so many things. And yes, it doesn't affect every battle, but when you come into a battle and you've got like one of your most expensive units, and they're not going to be able to counter an enemy unit in any way, shape, or form, that makes it really difficult to like theory craft or react, I guess, right? Like, like on a lot of my games, I like to keep my Sangri Guard back and like have them for counter charge and stuff like that. Well, if they're going to counter charge into a unit that they can't kill, what use is that to me, You're not worried about -1 damage all that much. Fair enough. I'm fucking worried about it because it basically turns a 32 point per model unit into something that does no damage. And it's like one of our most expensive units, I guess. Is that why Steel Rain disappeared? You couldn't root for Sangri Guard anymore? Steel Rain was a little bit frustrated, I think, with the March patch as well to the balance, probably. But yeah, I mean, I guess at the moment, I think Lightning Claw Vanguard Veterans / Thunderhammers are just as important, if not probably more important than Sangri Guard. They're also more survivable, kind of, which is another good point. Okay, but I mean, that's kind of the end of the stream tonight. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be live tomorrow night. We haven't managed to get anyone to play us, but we are going to be live the week after tomorrow. So Monday let me just check, I think it'll be Monday the 11th, and that'll be against a -1 damage enemy. That will be against the Death Guard, I think. So I'll come up. Well, I'm not probably going to change my list from last time, probably. Play something very, very similar against the Death Guard and see how we get on. My list obviously wasn't optimized against Drukhari, and we almost lost against the Drukhari, which makes it very difficult to play an all corners list, right? Because one of the things you need against Drukhari is like you need a lot of firepower but low AP, because like all the raiders are like a 4+ save but a 5 up invulnerable save. So you need like a lot of like, I guess, strength 6 or higher shots that are like essentially 0 or -1 AP, because anything more than that is just wasted. So like multi-metas, plasmas, all these sort of things are just wasted into Drukhari. And you need to open up the transports in Drukhari because their basic infantry are so damaging. They get so many attacks and they just do so much damage. Yeah, I think it's really tough. If I had more Vanguard veterans, I might actually just run like all Vanguard veterans and no Sangri Guard. Because at least with Vanguard veterans, you kind of know what you're getting. Like they're more reliable across more attacks, I guess. Another thing that I hate is like Sangri Guard can get picked off so easily. At least with Vanguard veterans, there's always that 50-50 chance with the Storm Shield, right? False says Vanguard veterans give two very important things: speed and survive. Yeah, I mean, I recently actually bought like another squad of Sangri Guard, maybe just like 2 or 3 months ago, and honestly, I think it was the wrong choice. I wish I'd just maybe bought another squad of Vanguard veterans. But at the time, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking I needed more Sangri Guard. But that was before like Crusher Stampede. That was before, I think it must have been just before the Custodes book. And those Custodes bikes are actually really, really strong against the Sangri Guard as well. They don't do any damage against them. Steve has dropped his Sangri Guard, unfortunately, for 10 Vanguard veterans with Thunderhammer and Lightning Claws. Yeah, I can see why. Maybe the Humble Assault Squad with dual Melta Guns and dual Infernal Pistol Sergeants could go transport hunting. It's not optimized though, Highland. It needs to be basically Strength 7 -1/2 damage, like assault autocannons. Like the Predator autocannon is probably the best weapon to kill Drukhari transports, but like who the fuck is running Predators with autocannons on them? Like nobody. Foz has another box of Sangri Guard on order too. Sorry, Foz, I've just killed your hopes. Yeah, I mean, I should have bought a box of Vanguard veterans 100%. But assault squads are too expensive, yeah. So maybe leaning more on Lightning Claw Vanguard veterans is the way forward right now. Maybe some people could play Flesh Tearers and run Seth and take him out of a Terrax and get those extra damage on the Lightning Claws. Would be interesting. Ager's also has stopped running all Sangri Guard altogether just now. How much is a Predator Destructor without sponsons? It's overcosted. It's like 130 points or something. Excuse me. 140 points. I thought it was overcosted at 130. 140 for a friggin' Predator. It's not even reliable. 2d3 shots. I think the best Blood Angels list right now are just full of Harlequins and Custodes. Very funny, Brent. I appreciate it. Yeah, okay, so I won't be live tomorrow. I'm going to use the time tomorrow night to try and get all the stuff together for the painting competition that we need to judge in the next few weeks on the channel. I was working through like a giant slideshow of everybody's entries, so I'm going to use the time tomorrow night to try and get caught up on that. I suppose I will catch you guys. Just convert your Sangri Guard into fancy Vanguard veterans. You could. I'll probably just have to buy a box of Vanguard veterans the next month. It's fine. It's not like I've never had to buy a box of models extra before. I'm going to take off. I'll catch you guys. I don't think I'll see you guys this Thursday because I think we're filming the next episode of the Grots podcast. But I guess so we'll see if we have something else coming out before the Friday video. And then next week it's going to be Death Guard on Monday night. Steve converted old tactical squads to Vanguard veterans, so it's obviously not a bad idea. Veterans coming out of a Terrax, veterans with jump packs, they're probably the best options right now. Appreciate the super chat tonight, thank you so much for that. And thanks for the list submissions. If you do want to submit a list, you can obviously do that over on the
community page of the Blood Angels channel. Suggest loadouts. Loadouts for Vanguard veterans, probably, in my opinion, every model needs a storm shield, or nearly every model needs a storm shield. Then you want lightning claws on most. You want some thunder hammers, but the best thing you can probably do is magnetize their arms. I have a Sangri Guard here, actually. Where's my camera? Here. So just tiny little magnet in on the arm. That will save you so much trouble and effort when you have to inevitably change them because Games Workshop changed the rules. Which seems to always happen. Right after you finish the squad, like I said, like you just buy the Sangri Guard, they become bad. So, yeah, consider magnets. They're the best thing you could ever do. Yeah, stay safe, people. Jimmy, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy tonight's stream, please hit the like button, and if not, I'll catch up with you guys sometime this week. Alright. By the blood, army made strong. Peace.